British tourists are among 37 people killed on a beach in Tunisia. Sunbathers and children fled in terror as gunmen opened fire in the resort of Sousse.
The gunman was 100 metres from us and he dropped an umbrella, then started shooting around.
Also tonight, France goes on full terror alert after a man is beheaded at a factory near Lyon.
The Queen pays her respects to the 70,000 who died at Belsen concentration camp.
And President Obama says love wins as gay marriage is legalized across America.
This is ITV News at 6:30 with Charlene White and James Mates.
Good evening. It's been confirmed that Britons are among 37 people killed in a terrorist attack on a tourist beach in Tunisia. As the gunmen opened fire, holidaymakers ran for their lives, many barricading themselves in their rooms. Some never had a chance, shot dead on their sunbeds.
One gunman has also been killed. The attack happened in Sousse, one of the country's most popular resorts. The gunman opened fire on the beach between the Saviva and Imperial Mahaba hotels around lunchtime. Paul Davis has the latest.
It was the day the fanatics brought their twisted view of the world to the beach. In the chaotic aftermath of the slaughter, a female tourist, wounded but still alive, is carried towards medical attention. But on the sand, covered in towels, the bodies of those not so fortunate. Witnesses say the gunman walked through the sunshades, killing indiscriminately. British, Irish, German and Belgian holidaymakers shot where they were sunbathing. These two young women from Yorkshire saw a man who'd been posing as a tourist draw his gun.
The gunman was 100 metres from us and he dropped an umbrella, then started shooting around. We realised that it was a gun. I stand up, shouted, "Gun, run." Everybody didn't believe me, thought it was fireworks at first, and once they realised people screaming, everybody scarpered, people falling on the floor, people trampling all over them.
The girls fled to their hotel, but the killer followed them.
He comes into our hotel, has a gun, starts firing it downstairs. We all scarper into rooms, hiding in anywhere possible. It's just not safe here. There's police everywhere, left, right and centre, that they've caught somebody. We have no information, nobody's giving us anything about flights. We want to go home.
We just know that the beach is on lockdown, the streets are on lockdown, there's police everywhere. The people are back by the pool, and we've been told that it's safe to go, but we're just waiting in reception.
One gunman was shot dead, the second man arrested and subjected to the anger of the crowd. On a day when France and Kuwait have also suffered terrorist attacks, the Prime Minister called for a united response.
The people who do these things, they sometimes claim they do it in the name of Islam. They don't. Islam is a religion of peace. They do it in the name of a twisted and perverted ideology that we have to confront with everything that we have.
For so long, the success story of the Arab Spring, Tunisia relies heavily on the tourist trade. These images will do irreparable harm. 2 deadly attacks in 3 months suggest the extremists have identified a soft target and a way to impose their hardline views on the majority that democratically rejected them. Paul Davis, ITV News.
A British crisis team is heading to the resort from the capital, Tunis, to help any Britons caught up in the attack. Here, Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond chaired a meeting of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan is at the Foreign Office. Carl, what more can you tell us about this meeting?
Well, that meeting is just broken up and we're waiting to hear from the Foreign Secretary. He was chairing it because David Cameron is still en route back from Brussels. As you've said, a crisis team is on its way to the resort to try and give some sort of assistance to people there. There's also a telephone number for people who are worried here. We'll put that on the screen in a moment. I think questions may be asked about the Foreign Office's travel advice for Tunisia. They weren't advising against travel to, for example, this resort, and they will be reviewing that advice in the light of this attack and looking at whether it could have been a one-off or was part of a bigger pattern. Two things suggest that it could be seen as part of a bigger pattern. One, there was an attack earlier this year against tourists in Tunis itself. And two, Tunisia sends more fighters to Islamic State than any other Arab nation. And of course, many of them are coming back radicalized. That creates a big potential problem for the Tunisian authorities. It also creates, of course, a problem for the Foreign Office as they review that travel advice tonight.
Carl, thank you. And as you mentioned, the Foreign Office has issued an emergency telephone number for anyone worried about relatives. It is 0207 008 0000. That's 0207 008 0000.
Well, more than 400,000 Britons holiday in Tunisia each year. Many are due to leave in the next few days. And our consumer editor, Chris Troy, has been looking at the risks they face.
Sousse, as many tourists know it. This is a promotional video showing the hotel at the centre of today's attack. Tonight there are 20,000 UK travellers in Tunisia, and as tourists again become targets, questions are emerging about the system of warnings that should alert them to risks. This footage, filmed by a holidaymaker, shows the moment two gunmen started shooting at Tunisia's Bardo Museum 3 months ago. 23 were killed. Although the Foreign Office said further attacks were possible, it did not advise against holiday travel.
Lots of people are going to say, how on earth could the Foreign Office not have warned people to stay away from Tunisia after the Bardo Museum atrocity 3 months ago? Well, it's a very tricky tightrope that the Foreign Office has to walk, and mostly they get it right.
Although the Foreign Office advises against travel to Tunisia's border with Libya and the Tunisia-Algeria border, the most popular holiday destinations are along the Mediterranean coast, where Sousse is the second largest resort. Here, the Foreign Office advises most visits are trouble-free.
Unfortunately, it's fair to say that you can't say hand on heart that any destination in the world is 100% safe from terrorism. It's an appalling act of cowardice, really, to target people in this way. But unfortunately, it is a reflection of the world we live in.
In 2013, a suicide bomber struck in Sousse, and last November, Tunisia was among 225 countries where Foreign Office guidance was updated, telling tourists to be vigilant. But is this type of advice too unspecific to be of real value?
The problem with travel advisories has been the case since the Egyptian revolution back in 2010. Very little information, and as we found out back then, holidaymakers just did not know what to make of it. And the real issue is that travel companies hide behind the advices given by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
These were the scenes in Sousse as tonight travel giant TUI flies out evacuation planes. Some tour operators say customers can cancel at no charge. But tonight holiday flights are still leaving for the airport close to this hotel. And we know of more than 100 tourists who've decided to go.
We talked there of tourists that have already decided to go, but what about those who've already booked? What's the latest for them?
Well, I think some people will be simply amazed, also worried potentially that flights are still going out very close to where this has happened today. The tour operators say that they will leave it very much for individuals to decide whether they do still want to fly. Many of the travel firms I've spoken to today say that they would rather have the planes flying out because then they are there as a resource for any potential evacuation. But they are leaving those important decisions to individuals, and that puts increasing scrutiny on this system of travel warnings, which is organised and delivered by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Now, as we saw, they have not been advising against trips to this particular strip. What happens next will depend very much on whether they change their advice. That could trigger an evacuation and could trigger new rights for people who have bookings.
OK, Chris, thanks very much.
In another separate terrorist attack, a man has been beheaded by suspected Islamists in France. Two men drove a car into a plant owned by an American gas company, setting off two explosions. A decapitated head covered in Arabic writing was found at the site. Rebecca Barry reports.
Shrouded in black, this is the site of a truly gruesome attack. An unwelcome reminder for the people of France that the fear and the threat of terrorism remains very real. The target, a US-owned gas factory near the city of Lyon. A car was rammed into gas canisters, apparently trying to trigger an explosion. Then officials confirmed a grim discovery. A man had been murdered. His beheaded remains found at the scene, along with Islamist flags. On hearing the news, the French president returned from the EU summit in Brussels. He said, at these moments, faced with these tests, these risks, these threats, it is the duty of France to come together and to fight against terrorism with the greatest effect. 4 people have been arrested, including the main suspect, 35-year-old delivery driver Yassine Sali. A woman claiming to be his wife gave an interview to a French radio station. She said, they say it's a terrorist act, but it's not possible. I know him. He's my husband. We have a normal family life. France's Interior Minister visited the scene, confirming that the suspect was being monitored in 2006 because of fears he'd been radicalised, but the investigation was dropped in 2008. France is already on high alert. It's less than 6 months since the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris, in which 16 people were killed. The 55-year-old victim of today's attack was the suspect's boss. The motive remains unclear, but the French authorities are treating this as another act of terrorism and have raised security in this part of France to its highest possible level. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
And in a third attack today, 25 people have died in a suicide bomb explosion in Kuwait. Officials say more than 200 were wounded in the attack on a Shia mosque, which was packed with worshippers for Friday prayers. Most of the victims were men and boys.
A group linked to so-called Islamic State extremists said they carried out the bombing. IS had urged its followers to step up attacks during Ramadan.
Still to come this evening. The Queen makes a historic first visit to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp.
And why it's taken more than just speed to get Lewis Hamilton's brother a place in the British Touring Car Championship. All those stories and more after the break.
Travelling should be a pleasure, not a chore. Welcome to Comfort Class. And the punctuality you've been waiting for. A chance to power up or wind down. Chiltern Railways take twice daily to alleviate headaches and congestion. It's the smarter way to London. Chiltern Railways Main Line. Nice and fast.
Feel like living the dream? Do it with 25% off a choice of floors and beds and half price underlay on selected carpets at Carpetright, the #1 flooring specialist.
When you find exactly what you're looking for? Well, in the Leeks Up to Half Price sale, it feels even better. There are thousands of ideas looking for a home. And now there's 10% back in store vouchers for everyone. But hurry, offer must end soon at Great Bridge Road, Bilston and Junction 3 of the M6 Coventry, next to the Rico Arena. Leeks, your home.
Pete's doing duck face on the beach. Holiday pics that cost a load to tweet. So Pete, come join 3 and upload duck face free from America, Spain or Italy. Alright, it's really alright.
On the go all day, my feet ache, but now my new Shoal Gel Active insoles cushion every step.
Amazing comfort.
Lighter on my feet, up and down.
New from the foot experts at Shoal. Gel-Active insoles ergonomically designed for optimal shock absorption, cushioning and support.
Gel-Active.
New Gel-Active insoles from Scholl.
Need a better night's sleep? Then get a better bed in the Dreams Up to Half Price Summer Sale. This week there's extra savings on a huge range of mattresses and beds, so there's never been a better time to get a better bed. But hurry, the Up to Half Price Summer Sale with extra savings must end Tuesday. Dreams, because your sleep matters.
Morning.
I'm just checking these for you, Miller. They're all good.
Flowers. What you been up to? 8, 9, 10.
At Morrison's, we're bringing back express checkouts in every store.
Welcome back.
Don Simon Premium Squeeze Juice, made with the best Spanish oranges just picked from our very own orange trees. Don Simon. Juice runs in our family.
Welcome back. The Queen made her first visit to a former Nazi concentration camp today. More than 70,000 people died at Bergen-Belsen, the camp liberated by British troops in 1945. The scene they saw that day, she said, must have been horrific. From there, our royal editor Tim Ewart reports.
The Queen had particularly wanted to make this journey, and today she and Prince Philip walked slowly through a place haunted by the ghosts of one of the great horrors of European history. It is now quiet and empty, the old huts and watchtowers long since destroyed.
Inside the gates of the Belsen concentration camp is a city of the living dead.
British troops who liberated Belsen found sick and emaciated prisoners and bodies everywhere. 70,000 people perished here, nearly 14,000 of them so ill they died after liberation. There were liberators here and survivors. Anita Lasker-Wallfisch, who now lives in London, was a teenage German Jew sent first to Auschwitz, then to Belsen.
The difference between Auschwitz and the Belsen to me is that in Auschwitz they had the most sophisticated way of murdering people. Clean, sanitized. They didn't need this in Belsen. You just perished here. You came here to die.
Captain Eric Brown, now 96, then a young soldier, was brought in as a military interpreter.
I've never seen anything like it. We estimated about 10,000 bodies lying around, and they were all over the place.
Those who died at Belsen were buried in mass graves. This one contains 2,500 bodies. The SS destroyed the camp records, and so we know the identities of fewer than half of those who were sent here. The Queen paused at Belsen's Jewish memorial and the stone placed in memory of 15-year-old Anne Frank and her sister Margot, who both died here. Then she laid a wreath at the camp's inscription wall, honouring the dead and keeping the memory alive. And that, of course, is why the Queen wanted to come. She knows that occasions like this can keep open a window on events almost too awful to imagine. Tim Ewart, ITV News, Bergen-Belsen.
In an historic decision, the US Supreme Court has narrowly voted to legalize gay marriage across America. President Obama called it a thunderbolt and declared that love wins. It means 14 US states will now have to scrap their laws banning same-sex unions. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore reports from the Supreme Court.
They have waited not years, but decades for this moment. Activists and supporters of gay rights in America, suddenly, even unexpectedly, triumphant.
USA! USA!
The Supreme Court ruling will permit gay marriage across all 50 states, leaving some here ecstatic, others deeply emotional.
It's a civil right!
What does this say about America today?
It says that in our country,
There's always room for progress. There's always room to move forward. There's always room to make wrongs right. And we did that today.
This is a hugely significant political, legal, and especially cultural moment in America. Perhaps a recognition by the Supreme Court that public opinion on this issue has now moved decisively. The president said those seeking change have often endured defeat and prejudice.
And then sometimes there are days like this, when that slow, steady effort is rewarded with justice that arrives like a thunderbolt.
For those who brought this case, and for gay Americans who have yearned for legal recognition, history has been made here today. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
A 16-year-old boy has been arrested at his home on Merseyside as part of an FBI investigation into a series of bomb hoaxes. A number of US airlines and airports, as well as schools and universities in Michigan, were targeted.
The government's fast-track appeals system, under which asylum seekers are held in detention centres while they appeal against their deportation, has been formally quashed by the Court of Appeal. Judges described it as structurally unfair and unlawful.
And Mo Farah says he will continue to work with his American coach, Alberto Salazar, despite claims that he was involved in illegal doping practices. The double Olympic champion said he believed that Salazar, who denies the allegations, was innocent.
And finally, when motor racing fans watch Hamilton line up on the starting grid tomorrow, it won't be Lewis setting a new record, but his brother Nick.
The younger brother of the Formula One world champion, who has cerebral palsy, is taking part in this season's British Touring Car Championship, the first disabled driver to do so. Damon Green has been to meet him.
He's had to try harder than most to get where he is today, but where he is where he wants to be, in motor racing and here on merit, despite a disability that means his car had to be specially modified.
Because I have no flex in my ankles, so I can't use my toes to accelerate or brake. So it means that when I'm sitting in the car, I need to have my legs bent at pretty much all times. So we only have the brake pedal here and the accelerator here, and then instead of a clutch pedal, we've got a hand clutch here on the back of the steering wheel.
Diagnosed at birth with cerebral palsy, he spent years of his life in a wheelchair before persuading his family to let him learn to drive. Nick Hamilton may have a famous brother, but that doesn't count for much in the dog-eat-dog world of motorsport. And while the older Hamilton may be Formula One champion, it doesn't mean he's not proud of his little brother.
When we were growing up together, things weren't looking great for me. You know, I was in a wheelchair for 4 years and I couldn't walk to the toilet and back without being tired. And I think he's just massively proud of what I've done to even get myself here, regardless of what I do on the circuit.
These are the cars he used to drive, but this weekend he makes the step up to the British Touring Car Championship, one of the UK's premier motorsport series.
The main thing is, you know, regardless of where you are, you know, and what you're doing, there is things you can do. You have to just focus on it, you have to push hard and be confident.
Nobody expects him to win here on the Croft circuit, not even him. But Nick hopes if he can inspire other people, disabled or not, to do the best they can, that will be good enough. Damon Green, ITV News, in North Yorkshire.
And a reminder of our main story tonight. It's been confirmed that Britons are among 37 people killed in a terrorist attack on a tourist beach in Tunisia.
That is it. Join us both for the news at 10. We'll have the latest on that Tunisian story. Till then, goodbye.
Good night.
No matter what the weather, Green Flag Breakdown Response sponsors the ITV National Weather.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Some parts recorded their hottest temperature of the year so far today. 27.8 degrees at Gravesend. Very warm indeed. And as we look ahead to the weekend, we do so on a pretty summery note, at least for the start of the weekend. Plenty of warm sunshine around and largely dry for Saturday. By the time we get to Sunday, though, we're not looking quite so good as a band of rain takes its time to clear away eastwards. But then looking ahead to next week briefly, it's going to be turning very warm indeed. Temperatures for everyone by the time we get to Tuesday or Wednesday, well above the seasonal average. We could even see highs of 32 or 33 degrees across southeast England, increasingly muggy as well. So, of course, the risk of thundery showers. But that's then. For now, as you can see, here's what's going on. High pressure gives us a very decent start to the weekend, at least across many parts of the UK, thanks to this little ridge here. But as we run the sequence, you can see we've got a rain-bearing frontal system, which is going to sweep in the back end of Saturday, clearing away on Sunday. In the wake of that system, the winds veer around to a much warmer south-southeasterly direction, dragging in the very hot air from the near continent and really boosting our temperatures. So the detail then, looking ahead to tomorrow, you can see it's largely dry, some good spells of sunshine, a few showers across the northwestern quarter, and as you can see, thickening cloud as that next system starts moving in across Northern Ireland into the afternoon. Temperatures though for everybody very respectable. I have 25 in the southeast. And then for the second half of the weekend, as I mentioned, that system going through, so not looking quite so cheerful. In the wake of that system though, starting to cheer up and hot for next week. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Green Flag Breakdown Response sponsors the ITV National Weather.